Hey guys, welcome to one more episode of our Table Salt, the podcast here in YWAM Virginia Beach. And today we have a guest with us. He's going to tell us a little bit about his journey, his life, and what God is doing through his ministry and worship and dreams and future. So don't go anywhere. So if you can please subscribe to our channel and share this video with a lot of people, family, friends, anyone. And this will help us to amplify and bless somebody that maybe need a word of encouragement. And so just don't go anywhere. We're going to come back really soon. Yeah, so guys, this is so cool. I have Jadon Franklin.
Yeah. Hey.
Bro,
Hi,
this
friend.
is so amazing. I know Jadon since I think 2016. I think was the first maybe July or September. I don't remember now. August something.
Yep.
I was just driving through Richmond, and I think you're leading worship, one of the meetings there, and
Yeah.
I don't remember. It was kind of crazy. And you were about to leave because you guys were staffing at DTS.
I was staffing the DTS, and you came to visit before the DTS, and then came back and translated for.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, one of our speakers, and so
Wow. No,
that was the first really getting to know
Yeah.
you, having you around. Yeah.
And
That was really wonderful.
you hold on. So, but you're dating Bailey, or
I had just started dating.
started
Bailey.
dating Bailey? Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh my
Now
goodness.
I've been married 5 years. Yeah.
I'm getting old.
Uh-huh.
I can't believe it was 5 years already. So, and then
Life,
you
man.
guys, I remember you left for outreach and came back.
Yeah.
And we just start hanging out in
Yeah.
the house. So tell us a little bit more about you. Like, I know you come from you're from New York, Buffalo, New York.
Yeah.
And but you have a bunch of brothers and sisters, is that it? Correct?
Uh-huh.
Something like that. Not a
Yeah.
lot of siblings.
For an American family, I feel like it might be large.
Yeah.
We got 5 kids and mom and dad. So yeah, I grew up in Buffalo, New York. My mom did YWAM a long time. My mom and dad both did YWAM a long time ago, but they they moved on when I was born in the early 90s. And then we moved to Buffalo, New York. That's where I grew up, 18 years. And yeah, so man, our family, we were amazing. I just had amazing parents, and not without its hardships, but I just look back and remembering when I was 18, and just I was such a mess, and just having the values of, especially my mom being real communicative about the values of just being able to know God, hear his voice, like he's relational, he can speak to you. And so at 18, I decided to do a DTS, more of just like a self-fix, like a self-maintenance thing. Like if I'm going to go to college, I can't go like this. I'm kind of, messed up right now. And so, I chose DTS. I'd already applied to college, ready to go to college after DTS. This is just going to be kind of like a little self-cleanup thing. And then I showed up, and this girl, Makisha Smith, I don't know if everybody knows this girl, but she spoke in our DTS, has this wild testimony of the Lord healing her from mania and things like that.
Oh, wow.
Just crazy. And so I just didn't know that there were like people like that. I mean, I had grown up in the Christian environment, but it was all sort of tempered and casual in a lot of ways. And so when I started to see the wild side of Jesus, and like the healing side, the deliverance side, the gifts of the Spirit and things like that, that really turned me around. I had never thought about being a missionary, but a couple of weeks into DTS, I was like, I don't know if I could do anything else. Because I just look back, I'm like, man, everything's led up to this. I just felt like after my DTS, there was no turning back. And so
That was a trap.
I know.
Oh.
Well, it was like, and there were people in my DTS that were like, Max and Bethany, you would know, they were like, man, you got to come back on staff. And I'm like, I'm the kind of guy you like, if you say that, I'm in my heart even more like, there's no way I'm going to be staff. Because I'm like, I don't want me being staff credited to anybody.
Yeah.
It's going to be my decision. And so I was kind of a little bit belligerent with that. But I was like, Lord, when I went on outreach, I was like, you got to speak to me. And if I'm going to stay in YWAM, it's got to be from your voice. And so he spoke to me in Brazil. We had our outreach in Brazil, so the south of Brazil in Dourados. And man, I just never turned back, came back home, fundraised for like 2 seconds, and then hopped into YWAM right out the gate.
Wow.
And it's been 8 years. And so
That's
Yeah,
so amazing.
I know.
I love that. Do you guys have like a because that's what I tell my kids. I don't know if your parents told you, but we tell our kids no college before DTS. That's what we have a deal. We say, yeah, you can go after that, you can go to college, do whatever
It's
you
very
want, but you're
valiant.
not gonna go, so they know they need
Yeah.
to go through a DTS. Is that kind of like
It's
the same idea for
very
yours?
valiant standard. I don't know if my parents were that militant
Like-
about it. they were they were a bit more they were a bit more like, hey, kind of deal.
Yeah.
Like, and because we were very there's 4 boys and 1 girl in our family, and all 4 boys were super super boys. Like we were like
Yeah.
very do it our own way kind of people, and so she knew that if she pushed the limits, she knew that we would it would turn us off, and
Yeah.
so. She was real careful with when and how, and obviously it worked.
Yeah.
But yeah, my twin brother, Gabriel, also did DTS with me. His outreach was in a different location, but he went on to do a little bit more YWAM. He's done lots of ministry since then. All of my siblings actually in some way have been involved in ministry with their local church or InterVarsity or YWAM or something like that. So yeah, just fortunate to be part of that sort of heritage.
Did Gabriel did a DTS the same time that you did yours, or he
Yeah.
did it before or did after?
So
Because he did in Australia, yeah? Is that
Uh-huh.
Newcastle?
No, so Gabriel, my twin, he did DTS in Richmond the same time as me. He
Okay.
followed me there.
You did together?
Yeah. But we lived in a separate house. I was
What?
like,
I didn't know that.
uh-huh.
That's
So-
new now.
So I decided in July I'm going to do DTS in September. So it was kind of a late thing. And Gabriel, 2 weeks before the school, was like, all right, fine, I'm coming with you. And so it's kind of one of those things. But he lived in a different house. We lived in different houses. We didn't spend much. We have a good relationship. We've
Okay.
always had a good relationship, not without its fights, but we were like, we're going to have totally different experiences. So he went to a different outreach team. He was in a different small group. Everything was like, we were
Okay.
separate just to have our own independent experience. And, yeah. Then after we graduated DTS, he went back home for a season. I went with a team from our local church to India, a couple of other things, and then he went to Perth, Australia, for a School of Music and Missions. A school of
That's how he
SOMM.
got into Australia.
Yeah. So
Oh.
he spent I think it's like 6 months school or
Okay,
something like
yeah.
that. Might be longer.
Sounds like it.
But yeah, he was there, and then he came back, and that was the extent of his YWAM experience.
All right.
Yeah. Now it's been
Okay.
local church.
So I don't know why they have like Newcastle in my mind for
Yeah,
some reason.
there's lots
I
of
don't
them
know.
over there.
I don't know.
Yeah,
But
they're
that's
amazing.
that's cool. So I know we've been talking about like for a while. When is the passion for Tanzania came? Like, because we know that God has something there, and we've been I have friends there, and I know God is every time we talk, there's like something else that God is preparing you guys, and also now you have married, you have a baby,
Yeah.
So what is that changing for you guys for being in missions? Because now with a family, with a
Yeah.
with a son, so
Right. Yeah. So spring of 2016, we late February. Actually, I'll back up. Late February 2016, I landed the plane. We had just come back from an outreach. Bailey was not in the equation. This is before she did her DTS in April of 2016. But we a month earlier, we had just finished leading an outreach to Tanzania and Kenya. I was single. I was one of the staff. We just had it was a great, one of the most incredible outreaches I've ever seen, or been a part of. I was like on the plane. I was like, I love Africa, and I want to always love Africa, but I do not want to go back to Tanzania. There was just there were cultural things and culinary things where I was like, if I had, like, I wouldn't choose to deal with all those things again to reach people. And for whatever reason, when the plane landed, man, I was just like, that's my, it was just the light switch just like got flicked on. And, 2 months later, after the beginning of Bailey's DTS, I was also staffing that DTS. We were at a meeting, and I was on my face, and I got a vision, and it was the Lord really confirming the fact that like Tanzania, my home is in Tanzania. And so that began like a journey of the Lord continuing to kind of decorate that call, but that was the seed planted in I would say May 2016. And so from then on, I was single at the time, and now, we're dating and then engaged and married, and now we have a baby boy. And so there's been a lot of life that's happened, but one thing was always consistent. And that's the first thing that after Bailey's DTS, we started talking about dating. And that was the first thing I said. I was like, hey, I think that I'm not like, just so you know, I'm kind of like I'm not ever going to leave the mission field,
Mm.
probably. Unless it's the Lord taking me out, I probably won't leave the missions field ever. How do you like feel about that, future wife? And so, you know what I mean? So it was kind of one
No
of those
pressure.
moments. Yeah. I was like, you don't have to, you're not
Yeah.
obligated to me at all. But if you're with me, like that's where I'm going. And her mom had been in the same city I just flew back from before I met her 30 years ago. So she had grown up with this desire to go to Tanzania because her mom had been there and had had such an incredible experience. And so it was kind of this really cool, like kind of linking of two
And
visions.
that's crazy because
Yeah,
you're
man.
American, Bailey's Canadian,
Canadian. Yeah.
and you have this like background stories that actually like kind of connect the passion for
Yeah.
what the Lord has, on.
It is crazy. In DTS, I kind of had to chill out too because I would hear her talk about Tanzania. I'm like, I just got a huge vision for this. But then she was like talking about, yeah, my mom was in Tanzania.
You
I
don't want to
always want to
influence
go to.
her, and
Yeah, I was like, oh my gosh, keep my mouth shut, And one other funny thing I just have to say is like I came back. I was doing DJing and I'm not a DJ, but I was DJing a friend's wedding, Mason and Becca's wedding,
oh,
and it was May 31st, 2016. Is there May 21st? Pardon. And I came back and I was like, man, I just got back from doing a wedding, and then Bailey happened to be in the room, and she was saying, oh man, my parents' anniversary is on today, and it's my parents' anniversary too. And so,
what?
yeah. And so I was like, that's my parent. How old was your dad when they got married? Yeah, he was 36. Mine was 36. It's like, how old was your mom? 32. They were the same age, same year,
Oh
same
wow,
day. Both of our parents married. So it was just one of those things. So I was like, this is it. I'm just like, not going to let it. I'm not going to add.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So we waited till after DTS. But it was a couple really cool things that brought me and Bailey together. But Tanzania was a big part of that. Because then you get to work at something together. It's not, you don't have to like depend on being lost in la la land a little bit. You get to like put both of your hands to something like as a family and like aim together at the same sort of goal or location. So, and then May of this year, 2022, we were in another meeting, and one of the really specific things I asked the Lord, I was like, man, Lord, the timing this is a huge thing, taking my family to Tanzania, leaving America. Lord, I really need a clear sign. And I gave him a word, an uncommon word, for someone to say twice, a specific person to say twice in a conversation. I was like, I just need to hear this word twice in a conversation. It was like one of those wool things. I didn't ask it this year. I asked this 6.5 years ago. And so in the conversation, it was really just funny how the Lord did it. But the person I was talking to in Tanzania didn't say the word twice. He said it once and he almost said it again. And then this year, just the way in the meeting, in the place it was, in the way it was said, the word was said 2 times back to back there was no reason why this person would have said that. And anyways, the Lord started to unlock timing. And as far
Isn't
as
it
like
funny
Tanzania,
how like when God says says something, and it knows like we're talking now before this morning, like has a prophecy, has like a word
Yeah.
for you, and things like how God reminds us and unlocks those things that's already there. He already prepared that, but maybe we need to go through seasons and different things in our lives to mature, to grow, timing, everything that to remind us back in that. But I know you have a passion for worship.
Yeah.
It's being like something, as a worship leader, not only helping your local church in Richmond, but the YWAM location in Richmond, but also like conferences and places that we've been. Now you just finished leading a school of worship. How's that passion came? Like, were you like young, or what was like music being part of your family? What is that?
I had a really glamorous beginnings with my relationship with worship, with music. And that's super sarcastic because I was homeschooled. My mom said, go do something to get your community service hours so that your transcripts look really good, because community service hours look really good on the transcript. And so we went to a local nursing home, an Alzheimer's unit. One of our pastors, a super evangelist guy, he took us there. And so Gabriel, my twin, brought his guitar. He had learned guitar from a cool friend that started to learn guitar to be cool. And I didn't know guitar. I didn't care for being cool. So we showed up. We're in the Alzheimer's unit, and Gabriel's playing guitar up there, and I have to sit with all the old people, and I had to listen to it's an Alzheimer's unit. So I had to listen to the same stories every week. So, and
Yeah.
I'm like, eventually I was like, I'm going to learn guitar so I don't have to sit next to Dolores and listen to Dolores' stories over and over again every week. So that's how I learned guitar at 13 years old. And then at 15, we started on the youth band. I started playing bass and stuff like that. And at 16 was, I think, the first time I really like led worship. Man, I'll tell you what, this is a 20-second story. We showed up at a really, it was in a lot of ways, I look back, it was kind of a goofy conference. It was real Southern Louis, I mean, I wouldn't have been surprised if the Gaithers showed up. Not that the Gaithers are goofy, but it was a youth event, and they were doing lots of boom pat, and there's a choir and the trumpet, so it was like a not your typical youth event with like the lights and the fog. But there was one song that a guest worshiper, she wasn't a headliner, she was just this random person that no one had ever heard of. She started singing my soul sings, my soul sings, my soul sings how I love you. And that was the first song I was like, they would sing it over and over again. I was like, you can do that? Like, you can sing songs over and over again? And it worked, and not get bored. And I just was I had an encounter with the Lord in that moment. I brought it home. That was the first time I went home and I said, I need to learn that song. And so I picked my 3 favorite chords and I started playing that song. I was in my room for an hour and a half. It was the first time I ever worshiped the Lord on the guitar. First time I'd ever like acknowledged like there's something here. So that really stirred up my heart for worship. And since then I haven't really had the desire to like produce music, like to get my name out. It was always been like, I just want to get crazy about the Lord and I'll use my guitar to do it. And if people want to join me, they're super welcome to. And over the years, you learn how to pastor people in a way, in like a place of worship. But it's always just been getting crazy about the Lord for me.
That's so cool. And you, a question I was like, as you were talking, teenager and brothers and craziness, and how is that like on your teenager years with like all your siblings? How is that? What you could say now to like that helped you, especially coming from your dad and your mom, and like as an example, because we know like those age, you get like 13 to 17 is like the rebellious, where
Oh yeah.
What is like kind of help you and your siblings to not become that rebellious?
Yeah.
Coming from your dad and mom, being like Christians, being with YWAM or missionaries background, and not being like the desire. Maybe did you always have, or maybe not, did you have the feeling that you need to be perfect? You need to how was that like managed? Because like a lot of teenagers now, they go through this, they need to be perfect.
Right.
Especially like pastors' kids or leader, in missions, they are like go through this season that they want to be rebellious.
Yeah.
How is that for you, like coming from your Christian parents?
Yeah, well, so I don't want to give off the wrong impression. I certainly wasn't. We certainly didn't. I didn't refuse rebellion altogether, but I think that through all of the really wacky ways that I just lived 2 lifestyles in my teenage years, there was one thing that my parents really propagated, and it was the fact that Jesus is just never going away. Like, he's never going away. Like, you can do really, whatever you want to. And my mom and dad weren't really flippant. They weren't like, yeah, go and be yourself, whatever. They were very like, this is absolutely what's right, and this is absolutely what's wrong. But the older I got, the more they were like, you can run as far as you want. You can dig as deep a hole as you want to dig. But the Lord was there first. You can't outrun Jesus. And so it was always like you'd make a mistake, but then this anchor of conscience was like, Jesus is here watching this, and then there were times where that really bared heavy on me and I felt so exposed. And it was like, how Colossians says, like, the Lord exposes the darkness in the streets, like naked in the streets. I felt like that sometimes. And it was, I think, because my mom especially communicated this really deliberate, like, Jesus is not going away. He's not gone because you think he's gone. He's just not gone. He's not leaving. And so that idea of like Jesus always being around and attentive to me was, some people, it was like, Jesus is my best friend. For other people, it was like, Jesus loved me, even though people hate it. For me, it was like, Jesus is just straight up around. And so like, I'm like, and he's God, so in some strange way, that really held me down from doing a lot of things I could have done that I didn't, fortunately. And so I think that played a part in
Mm.
it. There was a certain fear of the Lord that my
Yeah,
mom
and
had.
it's a reality. It's not like they're not
Absolutely.
making something up or putting fear. Like, oh, if you don't do this, no, God is
Yeah.
gonna condemn you or
Yeah.
punish you. It was out of truth.
Yeah.
He is around.
Hmm.
So, well, what is like coming to an end now?
Hmm.
What is like future? What is like? What do you guys see? What's happening now? You, Bailey, and how you see what's happening in the future?
Yeah.
Just
Man, so if you would have asked me last year, there would have been some unknowns. But yeah, we're starting a launch. Our family has been praying and waiting and preparing in a lot of ways to live our lives in the nations. And really, our heart is to see unreached people groups reached with the gospel, with the Bible in their own language, and with the message of the gospel like accessible to them as a people. And so, for us, it starts in Tanzania. We just want to obey the last thing God said, and He said Tanzania. Um, so next year, my wife feels a particular call to the medical field, especially attending to birthing mothers in rural areas that don't have access to resources or proper like education, as to like if the baby's born with this defect or this difference, whether aesthetically or internally, it doesn't mean it has a demon. It means that it needs this kind of care. And so there's just a biblical worldview that's really the medical perspective in rural areas are really starving for. And so Bailey's going to be studying and undergoing, studies in the BAS, the birth attendant school in Perth next year. That starts in October. And so we're headed to Perth, Australia next year in October for her to be able to get that training so that she can be equipped to use that for probably the rest of her life in rural Africa and beyond.
and that's kind of like a midwife or something
Exactly.
like
Yep. Midwife. And so, obviously, I love to teach the Bible. I love to preach the gospel. I love worship. I love teaching, whatever within those three realms there is. And I love to work. I love to be helpful. And so, there's a lot of things that I'm ready to do. We love DTS. And so we know that there's YWAM bases there that really value more leadership coming around them with their DTS in Tanzania. But Tanzania is 2025. So that's going to be the launch. Basically, we do the school. It's 11 months in Australia. That's October to the following September 2024. And then we take a couple months here, settle up affairs, fundraise, and then
and it's coming.
Then we're home.
It's gonna come faster than you imagine.
Yeah.
I always think like when you have things unfolded like that, it comes. So
Especially a little kid with you too.
oh yeah, I know. Well, thank you so much for
amazing.
joining us today.
Thanks,
I think it's really encouraging, especially for young couples, young families that are planning and thinking like what to do and have like certain fear. But I just go for it.
Do it, man.
Yeah,
the Lord has grace for everything.
I like what he said. No, we're gonna just do whatever the last thing God told us to do and be obedient. And I think that's what he lasts. So.
That's safety. You don't burn out you don't avoid burnout by doing less things. You avoid I think that and I'm still young, right? So I can't preach about this too much, but I think that you follow God's grace. You know where He's called you, and if you're stepping out a little bit too much, let Him bring you back. Repent and bring you back, but stay close to the Lord. Do what He says.
Yeah, obedience never leads you to burnouts. That's what I always tell people. No, if you're obedient, you're not gonna be burnout. If you have your heart burning before Jesus and always worshiping Him, if you have a heart burning for Him,
life and life more abundantly.
That's good. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, guys, for joining us. I
Yes.
hope this word will encourage you today. If you have any questions, please, we're going to have in the description, how you can contact Jadon as well. And maybe watch his journey, maybe some social media there you can follow. So, God bless you and share this with a lot of people. God bless you. Bye-bye.